Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at something most of us interact with every day. Music. But we're going beneath the surface. We're exploring how music, something seemingly simple, actually tells us a lot about huge shifts in our economy and even how we think about what a well-being itself. Our main source for this is Kartik, who has some really fascinating points about music's sort of unique economic place. And we're also using data from Professor Mark J. Perry, specifically a chart he put together on music sales over, the last 50 years?
That's right. And our goal here really is to unpack how music is this perfect storm, this example of dematerialization, moving from physical stuff to digital access.
Right, like vinyl to Spotify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also disintermediation, which is, cutting out the middle steps. Think record stores, some label functions. We want to show you why these trends, especially in music, really challenge traditional ways we measure the economy, like GDP. It gives us a whole new perspective on growth and value. And maybe, as you listen, think about where else you see these forces at play.
Okay, so let's dive into that history a bit. Professor Perry's chart, it runs from 1973 to 2022. And back in 73, vinyl was it king of the hill, but you see it pretty clearly on the chart as these newer, more dematerialized formats came along. Vinyl's share started to drop pretty fast, actually. Then came the CD, the compact disc, and wow, it just took the lead. Vinyl, meanwhile, really shrunk. I think it hit a low 0.2%, something tiny like that in 2006.
Just 0.2%, yeah. And CDs themselves were another step, right? More dematerialized than cassettes even, which were big for a while there. Less bulky, more convenient.
Oh, definitely.
But then the really dramatic shift, you see it on the chart, is streaming. Its rise is just, vertical. It quickly became the overwhelming way people access music.
What was the number?
It hit 84.2% of the market, according to this data. And streaming is, like Kartik points out, probably the most dematerialized form we've talked about. Just data, straight to your device.
But then here's maybe the weirdest part of the story, right? This vinyl revival, from that absolute low, 0.2%, vinyl actually bounced back, climbed up to, 7.4%?
Yeah, quite a jump.
And Kartik suggests this isn't really about technology. He calls it non-technological reasons. Maybe it's about collecting or the experience. He thinks it might just be a temporary thing, though. Makes you think.
It really does.
Yeah.
But Kartik also makes this really critical distinction. That chart, it's showing music sales, things people actually paid for directly.
Right.
But sales aren't the whole story. They're not the same as music consumption, how much music people are actually listening to.
Okay. Yeah, because what you buy isn't necessarily all you listen to or how you listen. And Kartik brings up YouTube here.
Exactly.
A huge factor.
He points out, pretty much any song you can possibly think of is on YouTube. And it's free, basically. Okay, you watch ads, but you're not paying per song.
And that just changes the calculation completely.
Yeah.
Kartik argues that because of platforms like YouTube, actual music consumption is massively, profoundly understated if you only look at sales figures.
He even suggests YouTube is probably a bigger source of listening than all the paid streaming services put together.
So that immediately makes you question, how we're measuring things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It throws the traditional metrics into doubt.
Which leads us right into Kartik's next big point.
Yep.
The shortcomings, you could say, of using traditional GDP to measure how well off we are, economically speaking, especially with music.
Yeah, let's unpack that because it's fascinating. If you look at the official stats, the GDP numbers, they tell you the golden age of music was way back in 1999.
1999, okay.
Back then, sales hit around $26 billion, adjusted to 2022 dollars. Now, compare that to today. Projected sales are only about $15.4 billion.
Roughly half.
Roughly half, yeah.
But here's the paradox. Kartik hammers home. Despite sales figures being way down, he argues that our actual well-being when it comes to music, it's clearly at an all-time high. He actually calls this era right now the most miraculous music renaissance in history. All this amazing streaming access. And he says it's just not being captured, at all by the standard national income accounting.
It's a huge disconnect. And this ties right into his Atom thesis.
Okay, what's that?
The basic idea is, for things like music, digital goods. Once you get past a certain quality level and it's digital, the cost to make another copy and send it out is almost zero.
Right, practically nothing.
So demand can essentially become infinite. He says music is a perfect example. Above a certain quality, demand is effectively limitless because access is so easy.
And that accessibility point is huge. Kartik makes this really striking comparison. He says even if you're poor today, at least in the US, you can access more music, a wider range, deeper catalog than even rich people could in the 1980s.
That's true. Think about it.
Plus, finding new music you might like, that whole discovery process is way better now, too. Algorithms, playlists.
So, yeah, the summary is music listening, access, discovery, all at an all-time peak. But the money flowing through the industry, the revenue, only a bit more than half what it was in '99. It's a totally different picture than GDP paints.
Okay, but wait. Kartik then throws in another twist. He says musicians, the actual artists, are making more money than ever.
Uh-huh.
How does that work? If industry revenue is down by almost half, it seems, well, contradictory.
Yeah, it sounds like it shouldn't work, but this is where that other term comes in. Disintermediation.
Right, cutting out the middle.
Exactly. Think about it. Fewer physical record stores. The role of the traditional record label has changed, shrunk in some ways. Those layers between the artist and the listener are reduced.
Okay.
So the money that used to go to those intermediaries is now being split differently. Some goes to the consumer in the form of lower prices or free access.
Like with streaming or YouTube.
And some, often a larger share than before, goes directly to the musician. That's why Kartik can say that even with half the industry revenue, you can still have much more access for listeners and potentially better pay for artists. The pie is smaller, but it's sliced differently.
That makes sense. It's shifting where the money goes.
Precisely.
And Kartik really pushes this idea. He says, no amount of money printing can increase the consumption of music from what it is now. That feels like a really strong claim.
It is a strong claim. He's arguing that music has gone through this massive deflation, but not bad deflation, like in a recession.
Okay.
He calls it good deflation. It's driven by technology, making things vastly more efficient. We get way more infinite access, practically for less cost or even free. And he says this increase in living standards, this improved access, is inseparable from that deflation.
So getting more for less is actually good.
In this context, yes. Technology-driven efficiency. He even goes so far as to say no amount of money printing can cause inflation in music, let alone hyperinflation. That just cannot occur. The underlying tech economics prevent it.
Wow. Okay, so this whole music example, Kartik uses it to make a much bigger point, right, about GDP itself.
Exactly. His broader argument is that our traditional measures, like GDP and standard inflation stats, are getting more and more outdated.
Why?
Because, as he puts it, GDP rewards doing more with more, using more resources, more labor to produce more output. But technology, especially digital tech, it's fundamentally about getting the same with less, or even getting more with less.
Right, efficiency, doing things smarter, not just bigger.
Precisely. So if our main measurement system, GDP, rewards using more inputs, it's going to miss or even misunderstand the value created by technologies that let us use fewer inputs.
So what does that mean for, like, policy and stuff?
Well, the implication Kartik draws is that more and more policy decisions are misguided because they're based on data that isn't capturing the true picture of economic growth or well-being. Music is just one really clear example. Yeah. But you see this pattern, this shift from low-tech to high-tech happening in more and more sectors, especially anything software or knowledge-oriented, as he says, as the atom progresses. Our tools for measuring just haven't kept up.
Okay, so wrapping this up, our deep dive today really used music as a lens, didn't it? Showing its journey from, physical records and CDs to just abundant everywhere streaming. And that journey highlights this fundamental challenge for how we measure economic progress. It's a stark example of technology letting us do the same with less, or maybe way more with less, and that value creation just isn't showing up properly in GDP.
Absolutely. Which leads us, and leads you, with a pretty significant question to chew on. If music, something so transformed by tech, shows such a huge disconnect between its official economic footprint and its actual value or consumption, where else is this happening? What other parts of our lives, also being reshaped by software, by digital access, by dematerialization, are being similarly mismeasured? And maybe more importantly, what does that mean for how we understand wealth, how we track progress, and how we make really critical policy decisions for the future? If our main economic indicators are totally missing a miraculous renaissance in something as big as music, well, how many other parts of the economy are we getting wrong? What does real economic progress even look like when technology lets us achieve so much more with so much less? Definitely something to think about until our next deep dive.